Mike, now back to that story of that horrifying car crash in Liverpool, England, during a parade celebration. Let's bring in Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of GMU's National Security Institute. Jamil, thank you so much for joining us here. You know, we're watching this and we've been asked not to speculate on the circumstances that led up to this situation. It sounds incredibly tragic, and we know the UK Prime Minister is watching this very closely. But your initial thoughts as we're watching this investigation unfold?
Well, look, Alicia, obviously it could have simply been an accident, a car gone astray. But we've seen vehicle ramming attacks, unfortunately, conducted by terrorists just in the last few months. If you remember the Bourbon Street attack by Shamsuddin Jabbar, where, 14 people were killed, 57 injured. Obviously, these kind of attacks, if they are intentional, can be very deadly. Whenever you see a car driving into a crowd, you have to wonder, is this intentional? Was it a mistake? Was it an accident? What's going on here?
Yeah, and, so we do know that police there have a 53-year-old suspect, a 53-year-old man in custody right now. This was a gray minivan we're seeing, according to reports. And additionally, just some terrible details coming from witnesses here. From what we're hearing from people on the ground, that this van started hitting people in this crowd, this celebratory parade, and then stopped. And at that point, from what we understand, the crowd rushed the van and was going after this van. And at some point, the driver of this vehicle then hit the gas again, hitting additional victims. So we're still trying to determine here, and investigators are trying to figure this out. If we're talking about an accident here, we could be talking about a medical situation. We could also be talking about the possibility of an intentional act here, and the possibility at this time of terror.
That's exactly right. It's hard to know exactly what's happening here and what took place. The big question we have to figure out for ourselves is, what are the facts? What happened exactly? Was this person, as you point out, were they going through a medical emergency? Did they have a heart attack? Did he pass out and then awaken and sees people rushing his car? Or was it a planned out intentional attack that was either self-inspired, caused by some sort of self-delusion, or was it inspired by a terrorist group, as we've seen in prior car ramming attacks as well? We don't know a lot. All we know here is a tragic potential loss of life, and certainly serious injuries there in England, an obvious tragedy and something we should all be concerned about, keeping an eye on over the next few hours and days.
Yeah, and our Alex Hogan is actually gathering information as well as we try to figure out exactly what happened here. But, these were Liverpool fans, and they were there to celebrate winning the Premier League. The last time that happened was in 2020, and they weren't able to celebrate because of COVID, and they weren't able to get out there. This means so much to the people who were out there, and it really kind of strikes at the heart of people who just want to celebrate. I think who want to get out there and be happy in a moment right now of levity. And to see this happen, I think there are some people out there, and I've talked to folks who steer away from crowds. They don't go to things like this, things that are meant for us to express joy, and then here we have this.
Well, Lisa, that is exactly the challenge. We've long known that if this does turn out to be an intentional terrorist attack, we've long known that terrorists target gatherings like this. They target places where people, feel safe, but in fact are vulnerable. Malls, outdoor gatherings, concerts. We've seen so many terrorist attacks that have been disrupted by our law enforcement intelligence communities, at concerts, at big gathering places, at parades like this. And so we have to be worried about that. Now, again, we don't know for sure what happened here. We're speculating that it might be a terrorist attack. It could very well have been a medical emergency, as you pointed out,
right,
or simply just an accident. But there are signs here that it might be something worse and more troubling. And if it is, obviously we know that these targets are soft targets. Even as much as you might do as an intelligence community, a law enforcement community, put up barriers to identify potential threats, you're not going to be able to catch all of them. And sometimes things like this may happen. And then, of course, the question is, what do our societies do? How resilient can we be? And are we going to give our intelligence and law enforcement officials the authorities they need to go ahead and prevent these attacks in the future as much as they can?
It's an incredibly difficult balance. And we will continue to follow this. Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much for hanging with us and discussing this with us today. Thank you.